We are continuing our focus on education, and right now we're going to talk about the COVID academic slide. If you're concerned that your children may be going backwards, not forwards with their academics, well, I spoke with Varsity Tutors Brian Galvin. He has some tips and ideas for us on how we can help prevent that slide. Let's take a look.
Report cards are coming out around the country, and parents may be surprised by what they see. Online learning platform Varsity Tutors has identified the beginnings of a COVID-19-induced academic slide in subjects like math, science, and English language arts. And joining us to discuss is the Chief Academic Officer at Varsity Tutors, Brian Galvin. Brian, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So for those that don't know, what exactly is the COVID-19 academic slide?
Sure. So you think about a typical school year is preceded by about an 8 to 10 week summer. And we know that during that time, kids lose about 20% of their reading gains from the previous year and 30% of their math gains. Well, this year, it's been a longer summer than ever before. It was preceded by a pretty shaky spring as schools kind of scrambled to react to COVID and get remote learning going. And then we still have all the challenges of learning remotely or hybrid learning. And so those three factors have really come together to give us, a very pronounced summer slide as a lot of families are finding with parent-teacher conferences and the first round of report cards coming out this month.
How have you measured the slide, and what can you tell us about it?
Sure. Well, knowing that it was coming, we have diagnostic exams that since July 1st, we've had over 60,000 students take these diagnostics to get custom learning plans to make sure they were ready for the incoming school year. And, with over 1 million data points, what we found was it wasn't that kids, across the board were behind, by 50% on everything, but there were a handful of critical skills. And we sort of define critical as, it's necessary to be able to succeed as we build new skills on top of it. For every grade level, there were at least a handful of skills where more than 50% of students were behind in math and reading. And so, for example, for 4th and 5th grade, one of the most pronounced areas related to divisibility and fractions. And where we want to make sure parents are aware is that, those are the kinds of skills that, algebra really depends on a good understanding of divisibility, and that higher level math will depend on algebra. We want to make sure families use this report card season as an opportunity to realize if we get our arms around it now, it doesn't snowball to the point where the next couple of years of math are difficult. And then you've got a kid thinking, I'm just not a math person, when really it can come down to 4 or 5 skills that we can address right now.
And we're a couple months into the school year. What should families be doing to help young learners?
Yeah, good question. I think step one is just to really recognize that the COVID slide is real. Families around the country are kind of recognizing it now if they hadn't thought about it before. And so we just need to put in a little bit of extra work to make sure it was a bigger gap than ever before. And we need to, put some time in after school and on weekends to make sure, we shore that up. Step two, because it will require some extra work from parents and then definitely from students, is really diagnose the specific skills that your student needs to work on. We don't want to inundate them with endless review and get them to resent learning or resent these concepts. But if we can identify the 4 or 5 things they most need to work on that this year will build on, we can do that over the next couple of months and then make sure they've got a solid foundation. And then another step to it is to supplement. We don't want schools spending all of this year reviewing from last year, getting kids bored and resenting learning or taking up all that time. And so just kind of recognizing, whether it's through tutoring or small group classes with a company like Varsity Tutors, whether it's, a parent kind of rolling up their sleeves and putting in some time, we'll need to do a little bit of work outside of school time to catch up. And we'll see, the benefit of that over years to come.
And how is Varsity Tutors helping families overcome the COVID-19 academic slide?
I'm glad you asked. So that learning lab with the diagnostic tools is completely free at varsitytutors.com. We're using the data from that to put together small, really efficient, really targeted classes on specific skills so that a student doesn't need to review all of algebra if really what they need to work on in 2, 3, or 4 sessions is factoring or something like that. So we've got all those classes, and we're adding more all the time as we get more and more data on what schools or students are struggling with that schools are about to cover. And then, of course, there's tutoring. And, I think a lot of parents are realizing that there are a lot more demands on their time and frankly, patience as school is back in session. If you want to outsource some of that work to an expert, someone to not just help academically, but be a voice that says, do your homework, or you better get, ready for that test on Friday. Tutoring is a great way to be able to do that. So you can find all of that and more at varsitytutors.com.
Well, Brian, Galvin, thank you so much for joining us today from Varsity Tutors. Really important information to help our kids not to go down the COVID-19 academic slide.
Exactly. Thank you so much for the opportunity.